If you, like the majority of humans on this planet, think that you might have parasites and you want to know what to do about it, you clicked on the right video. Hi, I'm Dr. Cori Stern and welcome to my channel, Take Control of Your Health. If you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe and you are planning to, please hit the subscribe button right now because that is my reward for doing these videos. And if you like the content at the end, please remember to hit the like button because it does help more people to find the information. And last and most importantly, please share this video with anybody that you know that you think would benefit from the information. So today I'm so excited to have a wonderful guest on my show. I've been trying to get him on here for quite some time now. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Rodney White, who, like me, is an expert in helping people deal with parasites. And Dr. Rodney, would you like to just give us a little intro to yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dr. Corey. And you nailed it when you said if, like most people, when you look at the latest statistics, anywhere from 85 to 90% of people have active parasite infection. I think the way we live, we probably all do. So, but we'll get to that. So I've been a chiropractor for 20 years, originally in Sydney, Australia. As you can tell, I probably don't sound like I'm from Nebraska where I live now. And I've lived here since 2010. And probably in the last 10 years, I moved more from adjusting patients into the functional health space because I felt like there was something missing. We could help our patients so much physically, but it's like these chronically ill people, there has to be more. And I would just get so frustrated with conventional medicine, putting them on steroids and all these immune suppressing drugs that weren't really fixing anything. And it just, the more I dove into the research and spoke to other people in the field, it just came about that there seems to be these 3 or 4 main things that are almost driving pretty much all chronic disease. And to me, parasites are always part of it. And if you don't clear those, you're not going to be able to clear the other stuff. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm at now and us having this conversation.
Yes, and your story is my story, exactly parallel. And because I've been in practice 23 years and I came to that same conclusion that if you don't help people with the foundation of their health and correct their nutritional deficiencies, you don't get results. So that said, let's dive into this very juicy topic of parasites, which I find it to be a fascinating topic. Some people get very squeamish about it, but they are a fact of life. And so the best thing to do is educate yourself and know exactly what you can do to prevent or minimize the possibility of having a parasite infection, but also to rid yourself of them if they're in there, and also to minimize the symptoms that you suffer from. So I would like to talk first about the fact that some of the most bizarre symptoms I've ever seen in people have come from parasites. How about you?
Yeah, it's well, let's go even further. When you take the most common underlying root causes, in my opinion, that I see a lot in the sick patients I work with, there's parasites, there's mold, and there's Lyme disease, and it's co-infections. It feels like that's the base of the pyramid, and then everything else comes from that. You'll hear people say, well, I had candida, or I had SIBO, or what, all these things seem to be a layer above that they seem to be caused by those underlying issues. And then parasites are the garbage disposal of our body. So they're going to move in and they're going to replicate when we have any of those issues anyway. So I often will question, you see these weird symptoms. Was it the mold? Was it the Lyme, like the Bartonella, or was it the parasites, or was it all of the above? But what we do know, and I'm sure that's what you're alluding to, is when you address the parasites, your immune system and your body can detoxify better, and a whole bunch of stuff is going to get better. Now, which one's the chicken and the egg? Was the parasite causing the symptom, or did you get rid of the parasite, which unblocked everything, and now maybe your body's targeting the mold, mycotoxins, or whatever? But yeah, it's like pretty much you work with a client for the first time. They've been through conventional, they've had 2 years of horrible health, and you come across like Nostradamus when you say, well, there's definitely parasites. And they say, how do you know? It's, well, we know the pattern, plus we're going to be right 9 out of 10 times. Then they start taking stuff to get rid of the parasites. They see it in their stools, they start to feel better, and they say, oh my gosh, you're amazing. And we really haven't done anything outside of the basics yet. It's like changing someone's diet and saying, if you're 400 pounds and you stop eating McDonald's and processed foods, you're going to feel better. And like magic, they stop doing that and they feel better. So yeah, I on one hand would equate almost every symptom I see in people to parasites, and on the other hand, you could argue are the parasites just blocking it? But there's some weird stories. I'm sure you get the same thing. Yes, it can be squeamish, but I've had so many photos sent to me of the weird things people see in the toilet when they start getting rid of them that at first we're like, oh, and now it's, oh my gosh, this is really cool. Like I haven't seen this three-headed monster. Or I had a lady send me a photo of a 20-inch one the other day, and it's just like, she said, how long's that been in me? I said, I don't know, but a long time, because she's been sick for a long time. So it's a fascinating subject. I mean, I never thought I'd be so intrigued in what could come out someone's rear end in their stools, but it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, I saw a pretty freaky one not that long ago that looked like some kind of creature from, like an alien creature, as I would imagine an alien creature to look like. It was just really bizarre. But yeah, and to add to your other, the base that I think you said, the pyramid of things that you find, I also find a lot of heavy metals and parasites together. And I think that one of the symbiotic relationships that parasites have with humans is that they'll eat toxins. And so when somebody's very toxic, they're more likely to have parasites, which, you can, I tell my patients, they're trying to help you. They're trying to be your friend and eat the bad stuff in your body, but they're also causing some problems at the same time. So it's best to get rid of all of it, right? So yeah,
you're right. When they first come in, I feel like it is symbiotic, because like take someone like me, for example. I'm 42, and when I hit 30, I really decided I can't just be a chiropractor who's healthy because I exercise and eat a somewhat clean diet. I've got to start being even healthier, because I noticed I was just getting a little fatigued and things that shouldn't have been happening. And as I delved deeper, I have all this, the positive for all the MTHFR subsets. So very loaded with heavy metals. Every time I would try and bind heavy metals, I would just get sick. I've had the bags under my eyes all my life from it. And so then when I first started dealing with parasites in my own body, I thought, I'm not going to have them because I'm reasonably healthy. It's still, I've been dealing with parasites for years, and I still will see some come out when I do a quarterly full moon cleanse, which I'm sure we're going to speak about later. And so I'm the perfect case study for what you just said, because I am still loaded with metals, because every time I try and bind them, I just detox. I feel sick no matter what different binder I use. And so no wonder I was loaded with parasites. I think they moved in to help. They probably didn't do it to help me. They did it to help themselves.
right.
But then our immune system can't find them. They reproduce, they coat themselves in a biofilm, and then they start obviously pulling out vital nutrients. But I do think it starts, like you said, as a symbiotic relationship. If you don't have a toxic environment, they're not going to move in there. In a similar way, if you don't have a toxic internal environment, your body cells don't have to really become cancerous and mutate and adapt, right? So it's just the way nature and our body interplays never stops astounding me. I think it's incredible.
I agree with you. It's just, to do this kind of work, you kind of have to be obsessed a little bit, and I'm fascinated by how these things work. I can never get too much of it. I love studying these creatures, all of them, bacteria, parasites. I had the highest score on the biochemistry. What's the test that you have to take to get your chiropractic license?
Oh, on the boards, yeah.
The boards. I had the highest score in the history of my school, just because I'm so fascinated by them. So first of all, there are so many different species of parasites, and also they can exist anywhere in your body. I like to say they're very intelligent. They actually try to stay out of your colon, because they don't want to get pushed out of your body with your bowel movements. And one of the reasons that conventional medicine has such a hard time with diagnosing parasites is because the only conventional medical test that's available is a stool test. And if they're not in the stool, then they tell you, well, you don't have them. And I've seen this happen so many times where it's so clear that somebody is dealing with parasites and they've gotten these stool cultures and been told, nope, you're crazy. We got to put you on an antidepressant because you're imagining your symptoms. So they can really live anywhere. They can burrow in organs and soft tissue and joints, and cause all kinds of havoc in the body.
Yeah, and you just nailed conventional medicine's approach to chronic illness in general, didn't you? It's
True.
we cannot find anything, so it's all in your head, so you're depressed. And of course they're depressed because they're ill and no one can tell them what's wrong. But to speak to your stool sample there, a couple of years ago, I used to do the stool test hoping I'd find them. And I finally stopped because I had a lady where we even did all the right things, where I told her, collect a stool sample on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday over a full moon. Like, let's get them when they're absolutely active, because we know parasites are more active around that time because the body has less melatonin, more serotonin. So immune system's not working as well. They seem to just do better with the increased serotonin levels. And she did that and had none. And I thought, this doesn't make any sense, because she had all the hallmarks of parasites. She'd had a stressful event. Her husband had died. They're both 70 years old. So this has been her lifelong partner. So huge emotional stress. Was otherwise very healthy, but was chained to a house for 8 months of nonstop diarrhea, like literally every day. She hadn't had one day break. And when we threw in some other symptoms, it's like there's for sure parasites as well as probably something else. So we did the stool test, nothing. But we did the blood test for toxoplasma, which is a microscopic bloodborne parasite. And about 70% of parasites are microscopic, just so that the listeners understand that. And that tested quite high. So I said, okay, well, that fits our suspicion. Let's open your drainage pathways. We did all that. Then we started attacking parasites. And this lady is very detailed. And she, as a joke, I said, if you want to find if there's truly parasites there, take the chopsticks and go through. Now, her stools were loose enough. She got it like a sieve to collect, because she'd seen that online. In the first 30 days, she counted between about 230 and 250 parasites and like 2,000 clumps of eggs. So we would joke that she truly was abducted by aliens, as you said. And this continued for about 6 to 8 months. She would have waves of all these parasites come out, and her body would her, I guess, natural default was to go to diarrhea. And then she'd be pretty, like, the first time she'd ever been regular in 8 months, she'd be great for a week or two, 3. We'd come up to a full moon. She'd have 8 days of diarrhea and all these parasites would come out again. And it was probably 12 months when she finally stopped having that and seeing any. So I agree with you. I think the stool tests are useless. I really do, because it was so rare I would find them positive in people, but they're seeing them come out. So we know we're not imagining it. So I've taken to just doing other tests that also go with the symptoms to know if they're there. And again, like we started with, pretty much everyone who's chronically ill has parasite problems anyway. So you're going to see them if you attack those first, which in my opinion, I always think the order should be always drainage pathways, then parasites, then you can take your pick on, do I target the mold or the candida or the Lyme or whatever else is going on. So yeah, I think if any of the listeners are thinking about or working with someone who says they should spend a few $100 on a stool sample, I think there's better tests you can spend your money on than that, personally.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that you said that I wanted to elaborate on. First, I just want to say that I've seen parasites exit people's ears, their nose. I've had people cough them up, so they can really live anywhere. Not all parasites are egg layers, different species. And when they are an egg layer, you actually have to make sure that all the eggs have hatched, and then that's sometimes why you see these cycles, on and off cycles, where the eggs have gotten laid and then they hatch later on, and then you have another expulsion like that. Not all parasites are egg layers, but there's like hundreds of different species. It's not even really that important to know exactly which ones they are. But let's briefly talk about drainage pathways. You mentioned that, and that is, critically important to understand, because like the way that you were having bad reactions to trying to do a heavy metal detox, you can also have a terrible reaction to trying to do a parasite cleanse if your drainage pathways are not open. So you will have something called a die-off reaction. And basically you'll have a bunch of dead parasites in your body with nowhere to go, and they'll be stuck in there. So let's talk about what are drainage pathways and how do we make sure that they're open?
Yeah, that's a great starting point, isn't it? Because I'm sure you see it too, where people start working with someone and they go straight into a kill-off phase and they get these Herx reactions or die-off reactions. And I see it most commonly with parasites and with Bartonella. That just seems to be the one that Bartonella is a bacteria that's, we're not talking Lyme disease in this one, but I like to talk about Lyme as all the co-infections together. There's arguments, is it just Bartonella, or is it Babesia as well? That's just a subset of different bacteria and viral particles, and we can even go down that rabbit hole of what is actually a viral particle, but they all get lumped together as Lyme. But if you kill these things off or start trying to before the body can drain them, like you said, they're going to release toxins. And those toxins make you feel like garbage. In the same way, when I'm trying to move metals out of my body, for whatever reason, I must be so overloaded that it unsettles them, creates a reaction. And I have similar to a Herx reaction. So drainage pathways, well, how does our body detox? The way I've always been taught in my 20 years in the health space is there's really four major pathways: our pee, our poop, our breath, and our skin. And poop, to me, is the one that you can control it the most. If someone's not pooping well, they are going to be so overloaded with toxins because you can only move so much through the others. So when I talk opening drainage pathways, I don't let my clients move on to the parasite phase unless they're going ideally 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, or I'll let them move on if they're having one really big consistent one every single day without fail. And really the only other time I would is if it's someone who's been so constipated, they maybe go once a week, once every 2 weeks. If we can get them to once every other day after 3 or 4 months of working on it, they're kind of a unicorn. I'll let them move on because we might never get them to once a day until we kill some stuff off. And we just warn them that, like, look, Cori, you're going to feel like garbage when we start this, but we have to get the stuff out. So we have to make sure liver, gallbladder, kidneys, adrenals, I throw that in there, and bowel. If all of those things are moving properly and draining properly, and we're pooping well, and our pee is coming as regularly as it should, and it's the right color, it doesn't smell, then we're in pretty good shape. If you know that your skin is breaking out a lot, you're getting eczema or acne or anything like that, then you know there's a problem, because if it can't come out the gut, it's going to come out the skin and the breath. And so skin breakouts and bad breath is a really, really good sign, in my opinion, that liver, gallbladder, kidneys, and bowel are all blocked up. And then you could argue why. Is liver, I mean, there's so much amazing research now on non-alcohol fatty liver. Like, it's turning out way more people have problems there than we ever thought. We just don't detox well. We live in a toxic soup. I mean,
we're eating toxins and breathing toxins.
Breathing it, we're being rained on by it, especially here in the Midwest. I mean, there is so much glyphosate and pesticide and herbicide being sprayed on all the crops. This acid rain that we get told is going to come with climate change is happening now. I mean, some of the clients I work with out west Nebraska and rural areas, their toxin levels are off the charts. So how is their body ever going to detox anything without the right help? I mean, then you add in a little bit of bad food, and no wonder they're inflamed to the eyeballs. I mean, it's crazy, right? So I start with some supplementation that's going to help them open those drainage pathways. Then we also have to get them sweating. But now we play one of the many catch-22s with chronic health sufferers. a lot of the people that you and I work with are heat intolerant and exercise intolerant. So we can't just go stick them in an infrared sauna for 30 minutes a day, because they'll last 3 minutes and they're going to feel awful. So if they can handle an infrared sauna, to me, that's the best way to get drainage pathways open, probably followed by exercise combined with dry brushing. That will help. But I've got some people who are so sensitive, they dry brush for 2 minutes and they start to feel queasy, and they might get it. Like if they've got bad mold and some other things, they might be suffering from POTS, which means basically that changes in blood pressure happen as they stand or sit, and just dry brushing can trigger that. So for the really sick ones, I'll say just go sit in the sun for 10 minutes every day. Let's just get some natural UV light. Let's try and drain a little bit through sweat while improving what we eat to hopefully improve our bowels. There's so many great bowel products. I know we're going to talk about Cellcore a bit later. They have a good one I like called Bowel Mover. You can use magnesium citrate. That might go to, if someone's really constipated, is the oxy powder. It's a ozonated time release magnesium. And I had one lady who's still doing all of that every day. She was doing Bowel Mover, mag citrate, and oxy powder, and she would still only poop once every 3 days. So I sent her off for a colon cleansing. She did 3 sessions and was all of a sudden regular. And the lady told her, I've never met anyone as blocked up as you who otherwise looks skinny with other than just a little, like, minor bloating. This patient would tell me, I feel like I have a pooch around my belly, but she was maybe 10 pounds overweight, if that. But she was just so blocked up with all this impacted fecal material. So her drainage pathways were just completely closed. So that's kind of how I escalate that, while supporting the kidneys, the liver, the gallbladder. If they're really fatigued, we've got to wake the adrenals up. You know, like maybe we'll do a little adrenal cocktail, like half coconut water, half orange juice, and some Celtic or Himalayan salt. And often people say, oh, it's too much sugar. Well, when these people are so ill, some natural sugar like that is the least of our worries. We've got to fire those adrenals up, because they're not going to be able to do anything, right? They can't heal because their body's running on empty. So
yes, and that's one of the most common things that I see, especially right now with people's stress levels. I mean, stress is a normal part of life. It's always there, and it always has been, but it's right now, we're doing this video in July 2023, and people's stress levels appear to be becoming higher and higher, and their adrenals are crashing. I wanted to add also, as far as drainage pathways, I also look at the spleen and the lymph system. Mm-hmm. So dry brushing is really helpful for making sure that your lymph stuff is moving. That's a whole other system in your body, similar to a circulatory system that has blood. The lymph system is a part of your immune system, but it also pulls the gunk out. It drains the gunk. So if that's not working, if that gets clogged up, you have a problem.
Let's stay there too, Dr. Cori, to make sure people understand. A lot of people know you can go and get lymphatic drainage done, which to me is really important. But if you're really sick, you probably won't be able to handle it initially. But there's different types of lymphatic drainage, and there's some that just, they do a massage and they call it a lymph massage. But in my opinion, just from what I've seen work over the years for people and for myself, you really want to find someone who uses the little microcurrent wands. They'll be called different things, like some will call it LET, some will call it ALT. But when people use these wands that will stimulate the lymphatics to move, it's like it'll vibrate on a lower level, and they use their hands then to help push the gunk. And like, I've had a blocked lymph node under my armpit for a couple of weeks here, and we've almost got it down now because my therapist uses the wands, uses a little vibrate tool on it, then moves everything. And you can even go sit, there's some amazing body suits called a flow press. Like, if you're going to do lymphatic drainage, let's go do it properly, but don't do it before you're ready. Like the dry brush is a great entry level, right? And really any body work's probably going to move lymphatics. But I meet a lot of sick people who say, oh, I tried lymphatic drainage, it didn't work. I said, well, what did you do? They said, well, my massage therapist does that. Well, that can help, but it's like that's C level compared to the A level of using some of this technology that's out there. So I just want to make sure I threw that out there too.
Yeah, and just as a starting point, if you are really struggling, and like you mentioned earlier, people who are very symptomatic they can't sit in a sauna, they can't exercise, but movement is helpful. Things tend to get backed up when you don't move. And also, uh, you can, like you said, sit out in the sun and sweat a little bit. And then I wanted to mention the importance of drinking good quality water, because any of those drainage pathways cannot work if you're dehydrated. You can't have a good bowel movement if you're dehydrated. And so many people are chronically dehydrated either because they don't drink enough water or they're drinking really bad water. So I just wanted to tell you about a really good water filter. It's the water filter that I use, and it made a huge difference in how I feel in my health. And also my dogs are doing better on it. So if you are suspicious that your tap water is toxic, you are correct. There are pesticides, herbicides, fluoride, arsenic, heavy metals, chlorine, chloramines, and other horrible toxic things in tap water. And a lot of people use things like reverse osmosis filters, or the alkaline water producers, and they don't really do what you need done. Small pitcher filters are very limited in what they take out and remove, and it's when these companies tell you that it removes all the toxins, it's not necessarily true that they're all gone. Some of these filters also remove minerals, which causes the water to be acidic, which is really bad for you. So you need a filter that removes all the toxins, leaves the minerals in, and does something called restructure it. So water that's still becomes chaotic, the molecular structure becomes biologically incompatible. So an excellent filter will do all three things: completely take out toxins, leave the good minerals in, and restructure the water so that it's more hydrating. So I use a filter called the Ideal Earth Water Filter. It's like drinking from a mountain spring. And I'm going to put a link for you to check it out in the description of the video at refreshingcleanwater.com. If you use the code Cori, CORI 23, you'll get $100 off your filter. And like I said, I'll put a link in the description. So I can't tell you how many of my patients are chronically dehydrated or just drinking bad water.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's a lot of things that we just take for granted, right? Like the very first thing you probably do with your clients, like with me, is we deal with what they're drinking. I mean, I don't even think of mentioning that in an interview of drainage pathways, because it's so, like, if we don't get them drinking water, and most people don't have a filter like you have, so if they at least have distilled or reverse osmosis, we can have them put some salt and some trace minerals back in. But if they don't do that, they're never going to heal. So I don't even think to mention that, because it's so fundamentally important. But we forget that most people who are ill don't realize that. So I'm glad you said that, because I think there's certainly, it's like the biohacking world right now, right? Like there's so many amazing tools and tricks and things you can do out there. But if you're eating like garbage and you're dehydrated, and you're not addressing these root causes like parasites and mold and all of this stuff, you can spend literally tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on all this stuff, and it will help your health to a degree, but it's only going to move you so far, and eventually you're going to die by disease anyway. If you don't get the foundations right, it's just a waste of time. But if you get the foundations right, and then you want to spend money on going from the 99th percentile to the 100, then have at it, and you probably will extend your life. So yeah, I think there's so much information out there online, it can confuse people, and they think, well, I've got to have this or I've got to have this, but you have to get the baselines right first. And to me, it all starts with water. We can go a very long time without food, we cannot go all that long without clean air and clean water. I mean, that's the source of life right there, isn't it? So
Yes.
I'm glad you threw that in there, because it's such an easy thing to skip over, and people need to know it.
And a lot of people are still looking, even people that come to see us or watch our videos. And by the way, I forgot to mention that Dr. Rodney is the host of a podcast called Trust Your Gut. And he also now has his own YouTube channel. We'll be putting links to those in the description of this video. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. That's really important. I was actually a guest on his podcast. It's excellent. He has great information on there. So a lot of people.
And that was one of our most popular episodes.
So really? That's great.
Go and listen to that. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well,
we dive down some. Yeah, we dive down some interesting rabbit holes, and I'm definitely going to have you back on, because there's so many places we can go with it. So yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I enjoyed it. So many people that come to us for help to correct underlying causes of their, ill health or less than optimal health are still looking for quick fixes or easy solutions. They just want to, instead of taking this drug, they just want to take this supplement, and skipping over those basics, such as drinking good quality water and eating correct food. And you mentioned earlier non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is becoming more and more prevalent. And yes, because people are so toxic, their livers are being overloaded, but also one of the main causes of it is high fructose corn syrup. And if you are eating processed food, you're probably eating that. And you just so this is what I absolutely must stress over and over. I do it on every video. Yes, we can help you clean parasites out of the body. You have to eat clean, organic, nutrient-dense food and good quality water, or you're never going to feel 100% better. So you mentioned one of my favorite products earlier, Bowel Mover, which is from a company called Cellcore. I'm going to be putting a link to those products in the description of this video. Bowel Mover is great for people who are constipated, but it's also good for people who just don't have amazing bowel movements, which you need to have when you're doing any kind of detox, moving anything out of your body. And then also I wanted to mention, since we were talking about the lymph system, I want to mention one of their other products called Lymph Active, which I use quite often. So that helps support the lymph system and the drainage pathways. They also have many different parasite products, which I use all of them. I know you do as well. We talked about it before we came on. And they have something called a full moon cleanse. So as Dr. Rodney mentioned earlier, parasites are more active during the full moon because of the change in the ratio of melatonin to serotonin. It's a good thing to do once in a while on a full moon, the next full moon. If you're very, very symptomatic, though, you might not want to start with that because it's kind of a big cleanse. So we start off a little more gradually. How do you generally start off dealing with parasites in a body?
Yeah, well, you nailed it when you said people go from, okay, well, I know I shouldn't just take drugs for this. Give me the magical supplement that'll do it. And I think the two areas that people have fallen for this is liver cleanse and parasite cleanse. They think, I'm just going to do this one thing and then it's all going to be done. Well, unless you're in the very, 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 very lucky 1%, your liver is probably struggling, because we all are, because of this toxic soup. So there are some really good liver flushes out there. There's one by Andreas Moritz called the Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush. I've done that a few times and I was shocked how many stones came out. I didn't think I had any, and a bunch of probably liver flukes and other things. But I did that because my liver was struggling when I changed a protocol I was on, and I upped some Tudka and some other things. And normally my go-to there would be that Lymph Active to calm everything down, and it wasn't. So I needed to flush my liver, but by no stretch did that suddenly detox my liver. I still had a lot of work to do. Same goes with parasites. I think if you feel like you're otherwise healthy and you're not dealing with any chronic illness, I have no problem with someone trying a full moon parasite cleanse. And I'll get into it in a minute how I like to do that. If you have any kind of chronic health issues whatsoever, any hormone issues, they've told you your thyroid's off or anything like that, I would go and attack parasites for a good few months to then be good enough to be able to do a full moon cleanse every month or every quarter. Because like you just said, you attack them for a month, for a week, and if you didn't clear them all out, which you probably won't have, you're going to start getting these weird Herx reactions and feel sick. And then you're not going to want to do it anymore. So what I usually do, if I'm working with a sick person, we'll open drainage pathways for 1 to 3 months, maybe 4 if they're really ill. And then we'll work on parasites probably for 6 to 12 months, depending what else we're dealing with. Like if we're using Cellcore, which I do for parasites, they have multiple different parasite products. So Para 1 is going to target all those gut worms, all the things you're going to see. It's got mimosa pudica seed in it, which sticks to the parasite. So parasites are very good at coating themselves in a biofilm. Our immune system floats around and can't find it, kind of like when cancer is able to advance. It cloaks itself in that nagalese and we can't find it. So the mimosa pudica seed sticks to it, pulls it out the gut. That's when you're going to see all these nasty, creepy crawlies in your stools. Then we've got to also target the other 70% that are microscopic and the liver flukes and everything else. So you'll normally start with Para 1 and Para 2. And Para 2 has a certain strength to it. Para 3 is a little stronger again, and that's really good at getting those liver flukes. And Cellcore will tell you that that's the one that'll get whole body. And then Para 4 is where it really jumps to a strength. So if you said Para 2 is like a 1.5 strength, Para 3 is like a 2.5, 3 times strength, Para 4 is like 8 strength. So no one should really be using Para 4 unless they've gone through a lot of months of doing the other work. So you also always want to have a binder there, because when you're killing the parasites, there's going to be toxins released. So what Cellcore recommends for their full moon cleanse is Para 1, Para 2, Para 3, and biotoxin binder. And that's probably what you're going to have linked to. I love that. So if I've worked with someone through parasites and now we're just maintaining, if they didn't have a lot of parasite issues and it was more a mold or a Lyme, I'll have them do it once a quarter. So 3 to 4 days before a full moon, I'll have them start it and I'll have them continue for 7 days. If they had a lot of parasites like that lady I talked about earlier, who literally was infested with thousands of them, I've told her that she's on some different maintenance protocols. She does that for 3 weeks of a month. And for the week of the full moon, she stops everything else she's doing and she does her Para 1, 2, 3 and biotoxin binder. And then after that week goes back to whatever her maintenance protocol is, where we've just got her protecting her mitochondria and other things that we want people to maintain when they've recovered. So that's how I do it. And that's what I found has been the best result. When I've had people who are chronically ill who try and just do a full moon cleanse, they just, the first time or two, they'll often get excited because they see these big creepy crawlers and they think they're getting rid of them all. But
Yeah.
they've literally probably got thousands and thousands of them in their body. And then by month 2 or month 3 of doing that, they start to get really ill. And so I think we can put people in 2 categories: the ones who are infested with parasites and the ones who don't have too many. Those people, you can do a full moon cleanse, fine. But for all of us, the worse we're eating and the more heavy metals we have. So if you have MTHFR even partially positive, and if you don't know what that is, just go and look it up. It's a genetic thing that about 1 in 3 people now have. And this isn't the podcast to talk about it. But if you have that, you know you're going to be struggling with metals and toxins, which means you're definitely going to have parasites have moved in. If you've ever been told you've got fungal issues and mold, then you've probably got parasites. So you're the people that don't want to just go and do these week-long cleanses. You need to go and attack it every day for a few months, because like Dr. Cori said, we've got to get all the cycles. We don't want to mess the eggs that then hatch, and now you have a whole new batch of aliens in there, and you feel like you did all this work and you feel healthy for a month and then you feel sick again. It just, you'll feel like you're beating your head against a brick wall, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is never going to end. And there's not much more frustrating when you're dealing with health than feeling like something's hopeless. So to me, that's why it's dangerous for people to try and do short-term things like liver cleanses, parasite cleanses. It's like the New Year's resolution. I'm going to go off sugar for a month. Okay, great. I would prefer you do something sustainable and slowly start making changes. So you're still eating maybe sugar, but in 6 months, your diet is now so clean that you're 30 off, that you've just completely unwound 2 months later. It's just human nature though, isn't it? We look for give me the quick, easy hit. I'm going to knock it out. Everyone can stay disciplined for a short period of time. We need to build sustainable long-term change. And while we're on sugar and things like that, if you're continuously craving it, then that's another good sign that you're being hijacked by probably parasites and probably also maybe some bacteria or
and fungus. Yeah.
fungus, right? Like mold. All my mold patients, they're all, I can't
Sugar
stop
addicts.
snacking sweets at night. It's like, well, it's not
Exactly.
your fault.
Yeah.
Something is literally hijacking your brain. So let's get them out. So that's my spiel on that. So I'll let you jump in with your
No, I was going to also say, if you're constantly feeding your pathogens, they're going to think your body is a luxury hotel and they're not going to want to vacate the premises. So
That's a great analogy.
And I have people, if you're very, very sick, you should really, really try your best to avoid sugar. And usually you'll need some good quality minerals to help handle the craving. So a lot of times sugar cravings also come with mineral deficiency, and eating good quality fat and good quality minerals will help with the craving. So if you're very sick, you really need to put some attention on reducing the sugar. If you're just functionally, not feeling great, but you're still able to, go about your life and you want to get off sugar, I do have patients do it gradually. So it's much easier to do it that way. You're starting to reduce the sugar and increasing the good stuff, so that you don't end up crashing and not being able to sustain it, as you said. The other thing I wanted to also mention, in addition to the biotoxin binder, because you do need to be on a binder anytime you're detoxing parasites. I love biotoxin binder. I use it a lot. Sometimes I'll also throw in some, from Standard Process, some Spanish black radish or some garlic forte, or both. Parasites don't really like garlic, so neither do fungus or bacteria. So those are all things that also help with just kind of cleaning. I call it cleaning out the gunk. That's the wording that I like to use with that. I want to say this was great. This was so informative. I want to say that if you are struggling with parasites, or you think you might be, and you need some specific guidance, don't hesitate to sign up for a virtual consult with me. I'll be able to step-by-step guide you through a parasite cleanse in a way that you won't end up feeling worse than you feel right now. So that's all I have for now. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Rodney. This was a big topic, and I think there's probably more to it, and we might have to do a part 2. But in the interest of keeping with the attention span, my viewers, most of them really like long videos, but I know that there are people that, don't, if they see that it's an hour long, they won't even click on it. So I don't know if you find the same with your audience, but and I'm just starting to learn how to take some parts of the video and make it into a short. So I'll try to do that for folks that don't have, the time or the attention span. Don't forget, everyone, to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that yet. Please hit the like button if this helped you, so more people can find it. And last and most importantly, share this with anyone that you think needs to hear it. And I will put the links to Dr. Rodney's other shows in the description. Please check them out. There's invaluable information there for you. And until we see you again, please try to stay healthy.